Ciao, Teresa, Tomeo from EWTN's Catholic Connection. And of course, we've got the new St. Francis book coming out. I'm so excited about that. I'm so honored to be in Assisi with Father Dan Quackenbush, who's originally from New York State and has been, I understand, here in Assisi for several years, about 10 years. And he is so gracious, and he's taking us through to see the relics, which are available for veneration until the end of March. And I wanted to just spend a few minutes with him to talk about the meaningfulness behind this whole opportunity for pilgrims coming here to Assisi. Father, thanks for joining us. I appreciate it. So how has it been? You've had over 400,000 people signed up originally on the website. It's so well organized, just a beautiful, beautiful day so far. What's it like for you being here and seeing so many pilgrims come through?
It's inspiring. I've been here for 10 years, like you just said, and this is the first time publicly that Francis' relics have been exposed in the 800 years. I mean, his body was exposed when he died, but since then, it's never been publicly exposed before. But again, 10 years here, all the pilgrims that come year after year after year, and we're talking about millions every year, 4 to 5 million every year. Last year is the most I've seen since I've been here because of the Jubilee Year. And so, we venerate the bones, the relics, but he's very much alive. And in fact, that's our website, San Francisco Vive.
Vive, San Francisco lives.
He lives, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's very obvious. And the city is vibrant. The city of Assisi is vibrant. And something that Francis actually foresaw, when he was on his way to die down in the valley, he wanted to die at his favorite little chapel, Santa Maria degli Angeli. And when he asked the friars to turn him around, he made some kind of prophetic statement about Assisi. But young and old, from all the parts of the world. So it's really been, it's just kind of a continuation of, but at the same time, I would say, a deepening of the experience of Francis' presence.
In terms of the theme, and the one priest from Zambia who was lovely talking to us, Father Elias, I believe his name was, the theme of we have to die to ourselves, which of course Francis was all about that, and that we have to see ourselves as seeds that are planted in the ground so we can grow. That is something I think that Francis, of course, is known for, but how do you think that is helping us understand the way he gave himself in terms of his life?
Well, the whole dying and rising dynamic of our lives as Christian, it's kind of what our lives began with baptism, and the ritual is all about dying and rising. And I usually do an introduction before we do the trip through the Basilica and talk about the kind of multifaceted sanctity of St. Francis, and we talk about a number of aspects of his sanctity. But the thing that stands out for me, especially since I've been here for 10 years, is Francis' love for Christ. And, Jesus was this innocent God-man who came into the world and took on the ugliness, the sinfulness, our brokenness, really, and is risen to life. But he took it all on himself through death, through suffering, passion, suffering, and death. And actually, you talk about, Francis would look at a crucifix and weep, and he would say over and over again that love is not loved, love is not loved. And he really tried to love the Lord as Jesus loved him with all his heart, mind, and soul. And part of that was, he had no enemies. It was the reason why Pope Francis came here to sign his encyclical letter, Fratelli Tutti, at the altar in the crypt chapel down below, right underneath Francis' relics and right next to the Blessed Sacrament. Because Francis had no enemies, including, Malek el-Kamil, the Sultan of Egypt. But the only enemy he really had was within himself. And he writes about that. He knew that there was parts of his life, parts of his spirit that needed to die in order to make room, for the spouse of our soul, who's Jesus, the Eucharistic Lord, So, and that's what I try to do with the group, is really try to encourage people to enter into the Paschal mystery, that dynamic in our life as Christians, that there's a dying, but it's for a bigger purpose, for more life that the Lord can pour into our lives and through our lives into this world.
Do you think there's something, maybe a little unknown fact about St. Francis of which people are unaware? What would you say that people don't know? Sometimes I think we put him in too much of a box, that he was this great environmentalist and, someone who loved animals, but so much more than that. He was so much more than that.
Francis wrote more about the Eucharist than he did any other topic.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to say that, this is La Città della Pace, the city of peace, but it's also the city of the Eucharist. Mm-hmm. Because, Francis writes eloquently about the Eucharist, and because he knew it was Jesus. He knew it was really, the incarnate, crucified, risen, glorified Son of God. He knew it was Christ. And that's why, even though he didn't think himself worthy to be a priest, that's why he had so much respect for the priesthood, for priests, because of that. Knowing, limitations, the humanity of priests, and even the fallenness, sinfulness of some priests, he knew that their ministry at the altar brought Jesus into this world in a very beautiful, intimate way, his body and blood. So, I would say, and we get pilgrims of all different stripes here. Sure. A lot of, obviously, the majority would be religious-minded pilgrims, but we get pilgrims that want to see the art. And I always tell them, you can't talk about the Basilica without talking about Francis. You can't talk about Francis without talking about Jesus. So, so I would say that surprises people. I mean, that's the dynamic that I like to emphasize about Francis, that he loved Christ the way Jesus loved him. And, he's the seraphic father for a reason. The characteristic of the seraphim, the highest of the 9 choir of angels, their characteristic is love, which more clearly reflects God's character. And, so I guess that's what I would say. But
thank you, Father. I know I'm taking up too much of your time already. You're very busy here, and it's been an honor. And we are actually recording this beautiful interview. We are at the Basilica of St. Francis of Assisi with one of the priests that takes groups through and has been here for 10 years, Father Dan Quackenbush. I'm Teresa Tomeo. I hope you stay tuned for our coverage on EWTN on Catholic Connection, and also look forward to teaching you more about St. Francis. Myself, I've learned a lot since writing the book, which is coming out in June, and also, of course, our Learn series on the unknown Francis, which will be out the week of Easter. Ciao from Assisi.
Bye.